This is Gabriela on the scene today with Talk Network Radio. We have a real treat for you just around the corner, and that is Empowered Living with Jeff Byrd. Jeff is the owner of Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, and he will be coming to you weekly to teach you more about empowered living. Now, let's join Jeff already in the studio.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jeff Byrd with Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, and this is Empowered Living. Now, what I do with my life, what I aim to do, is to build the best people and teams and leaders possible. And to do that, to have the best quality of life and work and community that we can possibly have. And so one of the things that I get to do, it's a big privilege of mine, is to bring in guests to the studio here to chat with who have had dynamic personal experiences and have learned things that they can pass along to other people to help improve their lives as well. And so it's a big honor for me today to be able to introduce to you Jennifer Johnson. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And Jennifer, I met her a few months back, and it was at a storytelling night that another former guest, Lauren Hope, was putting on. And so I was speaking and you were speaking and we ended up chatting a little bit before the show, and you had a big support team there but you told this really compelling story. And, like we were chatting before the show, I said, you rarely hear a story like this except maybe, on Springer or Maury or something like that. But the thing with them is they usually don't have extremely positive resolutions and healings and outcomes that can enable the person who's been through the story to flip that script and to turn it around into something that benefits and blesses other people. And that's what's happened with yours. And you're in the process of writing, you got a couple of books in the works, but one of them's about your story, right?
Yes. That's going to be my second book.
And that's going to be the second book. So, but that's something you've already got the story now. It's just putting the thoughts together and getting it out there. So, and we're definitely going to want to be kept posted on that, as that comes together, because I can't wait to read it personally. That's exciting. You can put me on the pre-order list.
Okay, I sure will.
Okay, that's great. So, well, what I wanted to start with, and I know there's some points that as I heard you tell your story before, I was like, oh wow, I want to dive into that a little bit more and see how that works, because I know that's something that everybody, or at least a lot of people, are dealing with. But just to kind of catch everybody else up to speed, I just wanted to give you an opportunity just to share some of the key points or anything that comes to your heart about that story, so that we can understand why these other pieces of it are so important. Okay.
Let me see. Where do I begin? So I was a teen mom. I had my son when I was 15 years old. A lot of teenagers don't plan on becoming a teen parent, you know, and are confused and not sure, how to deal with the situation or what's going to happen with their life. So I had that to deal with at a young age. And I had goals, I wanted to go away to college and, have that college experience life and, one day get married and have children, but, not so soon. But, I had my son and I was determined to make the best of his life as well as mine. And I knew that, in order for me to do that, I had to push through and be strong and finish high school, which I did. I ended up going to college. I graduated from college. And, I was like, okay, a lot of people probably counted me out, and didn't think that I would be able to make it through that. But I did. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing, So, fast forward, a couple of years, and I met my husband, and he helped me through a lot of things. I was in a tough place, when we met, just, dealing with being a mom and working full time and going to school, that takes a lot out of you,
I can imagine.
But, we connected, and I was like, wow, I really found someone that I can, connect with, and, I think I could spend the rest of my life with this man, And we did. We got married. We had 2 additional children, and Our careers were on track. You know, I was working as a paralegal. He was in the military. And we bought our first house. And I'm like, wow, you know, these are some of the things that were my goals that I was like, okay, this is what I want to do with my life. And then just seeing all of this happen is like, wow, even though, you know, I did have a child at such a young age, I'm still accomplishing the things that I had set out to do. You know, so that I felt good about that. Like, wow, you know. And then getting into our marriage, you know, my husband and I started to go through some things financially. And it kind of took a toll on us. And we ended up actually losing our first home to foreclosure. And then after that, we stayed with my parents for a little while and finally found another place to move to. And about 3 days after we moved, my husband said, okay, well, I'm going to Iraq. And I was like, okay, you know. And it was a shocker to me because he had volunteered to go, you know. So I'm like, you know, we're already going through this and we have this friction and you volunteer.
Yeah, who does that?
You know? So I'm like, okay, you know, maybe there's a reason that I don't understand, but, you know, it is what it is. So while he was deployed, I, you know, was still dealing with a lot of things that were going on in our marriage and dealing with some personal issues of my own. And I did something I never thought I would do, and I cheated on my husband, you know, and I tried to keep that from him, you know, while he was away and then when he came back. But that didn't happen. Yeah. You know, he found out, and of course, you know, any typical person who's been betrayed, you know, they're hurt and dealing with their emotions, you know, about the situation. And I knew, I kind of felt like, okay, you know, he knows, so now my marriage is over. You know, he's not going to forgive me, and this is the end. But that wasn't the case, you know. He said that he, you know, wanted to continue, you know, with our marriage and work things out. And, you know, we tried to do that for a little while. And then I found out that he had cheated. And not only did he cheat, but there was a child born from this, you know, infidelity. And, you know, it tore me to pieces because we was actually in the process of buying our second home. And I'm like, you know, how could this be happening? You know, I'm thinking we're, you know, working towards making things better in our marriage and now this, you know. So I had to deal with, okay, well, what am I going to do? You know, am I going to stay? Am I going to walk away? You know, what about my children? You know, and I took the time to think about, you know, not only the impact on my life, but my kids' life. And I kept it to myself. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell my friends because, you know, when you start having those conversations with other people, it's like, oh, well, you should do this. And, you know, I wouldn't stand for that. And I didn't want to hear all that talk, you know, so I took the time to pray about it and, you know, think for myself, like, what does Jennifer want? Yeah. And ultimately, I made the decision to forgive him, try to rebuild that trust. And what brought me to that decision is I had to look at the man that he was and not the mistake that he made because we're not perfect, you know, and I just, you know, shared what I had, you know, done what she did, you know, when he was deployed. So nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes, you know. So, and not only did I have to, you know, forgive him, but I also had to forgive the other party that was involved and also be okay with being in this little boy's life, you know, because he didn't ask to be here. He didn't ask to be put in this situation, you know. So, you know, fast forward a little couple of years and I start to feel, I guess, like a sense of depression or like anxiety from everything that I had been through and never dealing with it. And I said, okay, I can't just sit here in this. I need to figure this out. I need to get some help. So I started going to counseling, and I told my story to my counselor, and after a couple of sessions, she said, well, you talk about, forgiving the people who have done things to you in your life, but have you forgiven yourself? And I just sat there and I'm like, that's kind of deep. Like, forgive myself. Like, what do I have to forgive myself for? And she said, well, I want you to think about that. Maybe journal how you feel. And so I did that. And then after journaling and writing some things down, I realized that I needed to forgive myself for the mistakes that I've made as far as, giving away my virginity at a young age and getting pregnant at 15, the infidelity, in my marriage. And then also not putting myself first. I'm always doing stuff for everybody else, and not thinking about myself and my needs, So, once I got all of that out, and I realized that, journaling is an important part to healing, to forgiving, and then moving and growing in your life. And it's important that you forgive yourself for whatever it is that you did or what happened in your life so that you can grow to that next level. And once I was able to go through that journey of forgiving myself, I was able to go back to school for my master's degree, which I'll be graduating in May.
Oh,
so
congratulations.
My master's, thank you.
Yeah, awesome.
I started a blog, and then I wrote my first book, which will be out hopefully in April.
Yeah.
And then I have a second book that, about this story, which, I'm going to try to put out next year.
Yeah.
So just that forgiveness propelled me to another level in my life that I'm so thankful for.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And there's a couple of things, already that I wanted to ask you about, but one of them that kind of came to mind as I was listening to your story again that hadn't been in mind to start with, when you were talking about being a teen mom, that reminded me, and unless you're in that situation, you probably don't realize how widespread that is. But I remember years ago when I was back as a pizza delivery guy, we would deliver this pizza lunch program, and one of the schools that we went to was an entire school just for pregnant teen moms.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
And I went there.
I was like, really? Yeah. Just up over off of Sills Point Road. And I was like, wow, I'm like, there's an entire school dedicated to this. This is this widespread.
Yeah.
And yeah, it really is.
It is.
And so, but I think that I can't hardly imagine that dynamic. I mean, when you're supposed to be figuring out where you want to go with your life and, playing sports and, finding your strengths and developing those things to move forward. Now, all of a sudden, you got like this brand new little life that's all dependent on you, and you're still in a situation needing to be dependent on other people.
Right, you're still a child yourself.
So, so I'd like to know, though, if you had some words of encouragement or advice to give, and I don't know if there's any teen moms listening to this, or probably more likely there are those who have them, or who maybe know other people that do, but what does a teen mom need?
Support and encouragement.
Yeah.
You have a lot of things going through your mind, of letting your family down and the failures, and then also you have this little life that's dependent on you.
Right.
And sometimes you get lost in that, so just be there to support them, to listen, and to encourage them to keep going with their goals, just because, I want my life to show that just because I was a teen mom, it doesn't mean that I stopped pursuing my goals.
Right.
It may take a little longer,
yeah,
but you'll get there.
But it's like Churchill said, it's not the